nature friends, happy summer. If you are like me and you live in Pennsylvania, you're probably wondering when it's going to stop raining. Or you were wondering that. And you kind of wanted a refund for your summer vacation because you felt cheated. And now it's like 100. So we went from 60 degrees and rain to like 95 and 100 degree hot and sunny weather. I'm not complaining, but it was quite a jump. So welcome today. I'm going to be hiking and chatting with you about our gifted learners. So I typed out a little outline with some notes for what I wanted to talk about today. And I left it on my desk because I was so excited to come out and hike. So I'm going to wing it. And if you're not into listening to my rambling as I hike for my vlog, every vlog has a corresponding blog, which is not rambling. So if you want something more concise, feel free to go look for the same topic in my blog. For now, I'm going to turn you around so you can see nature instead of me. So the reason for my vlog is so you can listen to me chat about teachery things and also enjoy a piece of nature while listening. And it'll hopefully calm you down and soothe your soul. So with that being said, I decided to take 4 grad classes this summer. I finished them already, by the way. I started them in May. They're the ones through Learner's Edge and the teaching channel. So they're kind of like nice, quick courses. I enjoy them very much. They're an easy way to get grad credits and kind of get down to the nitty-gritty on topics of interest. Kind of in like a shorter period of time. So one of the classes I took was about how to help our gifted learners. And I took this because I always feel like I'm doing our gifted learners a bit of a disservice. I think I'm going to walk into these pines for a little bit, not the whole path though. And then we'll continue going up the mountain. I kind of want to get out of the sun for a hair. So I always feel like my classes are leveled. I teach ELA and my classes are leveled. So all of my higher achieving students are in the same class. And because of that, it makes it easier for me. Like I can scaffold for my learning support kids. I can do all of the grade level stuff with my academic classes. And then I do throw some extensions in for my higher level kids. However, I feel like I'm not pushing them enough. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. So I love all the different levels that I teach for different reasons. I thoroughly enjoy my learning support students, and when their faces light up, when they grasp something and they see that they're capable and they can do it, that's like my favorite. My academic kids, it's nice because I can teach them on level, I can push them and watch them grow. And then my high kids, I almost selfishly just have fun with them. Like, I elevate them a little bit beyond that academic level and make it a little more rigorous. Clearly not rigorous enough. Otherwise I wouldn't have taken this class. But they're easy, if that makes sense. And I thoroughly enjoy, like, we get into some totally off the cuff rambling conversations about topics, and it's neat because they're not frivolous, like we're deeply exploring a topic and we're looking at it from different angles. But I don't know that doing that is necessarily giving them what they need to push for the level that they're at. It's entertaining for all of us and it makes class interesting and fun, but I just don't think it's the push they need. So my goal is to enhance that so I can still have that fun with them, but also be giving them a little brain sweat because they need it and they're capable of it. So that's why we're here today. So through Learner's Edge, it'd be nice if they had an affiliate link. Through Learner's Edge, I took a course on how to help extend gifted learners. Now, I took this with a different mindset. So the number of gifted learners I get in a year is few and far between. I might have, like, most normal years, I might have 2 or 3. But that being said, some of my higher achieving students, they might not be labeled as gifted, but they are most certainly incredibly intelligent and talented and hardworking, and could benefit from some of the same, I'm going to call them supports or modifications. Maybe modifications is a better word. Sorry. It's summertime and my teacher lingo is like womp womp, and I'm also like, yay, I'm in the woods. So I might not sound as professional as I would in, September when I'm back in the mode. Anyway, so there are a few things that this course pointed out to me that I thought were pretty awesome, because they were sort of things that were right under my nose and I just wasn't seeing them. And now that they've been pointed out to me, it seems so easy to accomplish what I was really hoping to accomplish for this subset of students. So first of all, when I took this class, they were quick to talk about the MTSS process. Those of you not familiar, you'll have to do some of your own research, but that's the whole tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. If that doesn't ring a bell, please Google it. It's a lengthy explanation, and maybe for another vlog and blog. So I've always, we use the MTSS process at our school, but I use it for my struggling learners, and it never really occurred to me that I could use it for the learners who excel. And once I read that, I'll be honest, I felt kind of stupid, but I realized, why can't I do that? Now, once again, let me backtrack. So tier 1 is your whole class instruction, and then tier 2, which is what they were focusing on, is your small group pull out. Now, in a learning support classroom, I have a para. Just so you know, if you've ever come to State Game Lands 211 in Pennsylvania, just give you a little peek here. It's beautiful. It doesn't all look like this. It has a very diverse ecosystem up here, and I love it. This path is really great, but once you start going down there, it goes downhill pretty steadily, and then you either have a creek crossing or you gotta turn around and come back up. And I kind of wanted to walk up the mountain today, so I don't know that I want to do both. Anyway, back on track. So they're suggesting that if you have gifted learners, and I feel like this might work a little bit better for classes that are not leveled. I'd have to adapt it for my situation, but they're saying, do that small group pull out. Instead of having a group pool that needs extra support, also have a group pool that needs extensions. And that really struck me, because I know that a lot of us, and I know it doesn't make it right, but I do feel better saying I know that a lot of us do this. When you have a class, a mixed class, and you have those students that excel, and you can hand them something and they just do it, and it's easy, and then they just entertain themselves while they wait for everybody else, it's wonderful. And you tend to leave them to their own devices and focus your attention on the kids who are struggling and don't understand, or the behaviors and all the other 12,000 things you're dealing with. But something to think about is, how can I take this lesson to the next level for this group of students and have something separate for them? Now, I know not everybody has the luxury of, having an extra set of adult hands in the classroom to pull kids, but this particular subset of learners, truth be told, you should be able to give them an assignment, post an assignment, spend a few minutes with them, and get them started, and then from there, just check in on them periodically. So definitely something to think about. So I highly recommend doing a little research on the MTSS process, and then thinking about what can you do in your classroom for a small group pull out for those higher achieving learners. All right, and we're back. So I do see now I need to keep an eye on my SD card though and do some clearing on my GoPro. All right, back at it. So moving on from MTSS, the next thing that I learned in this course was the importance of a pre-assessment. And I had actually asked questions about this because I wasn't really sure the best way to handle that. So their suggestion is in your classes to take the unit test and give it at the beginning. And for the students who grasp certain basic concepts, you can compact the curriculum and effectively move them ahead onto the next task while you teach whatever lesson you were intending to teach to the rest of your class. So, for example, I thought about this in my ELA classroom because I was a little confused at first, because I was thinking most of my curriculum is centered on a specific story. So I could take the example of when I teach Thank You, Ma'am. I focus on plot elements. I focus on types of conflict. There's some key vocabulary words in every story. And there's usually some kind of grammar lesson attached. Depends what point of the year. I don't always do it at the same point of the year. So my unit test, the questions that pertain to plot, conflict, characterization, key vocab words, grammar concepts, that's what I need to pre-assess. And all of those lessons that I do to front load those concepts before we read and as we read, I can use the pre-assessment to figure out which students, sorry, I hear a tree. I can't figure out if it's the tree or if there's something in the tree. I think it's just the tree. Okay. So, you can figure out whether or not you need to front load those concepts or not for those students. So it is kind of neat because you'll be able to differentiate better for your higher level learners through this pre-assessment. Now the class suggested that you don't use multiple choice because it's too easy to just guess. So they suggested, more of like application type questions to see if your students really get it and they're not just good guessers. So the suggestion from there is if they get like a 85% or better on this pre-assessment, then they get to kind of skip over that whole class instruction, like what is conflict or what is plot, and they can move on to something else. That something else would depend on you. Do you want them to move on to the story? Do you want them to do some kind of independent thing? Like, you have to figure out what you want them to do with that time while you're teaching the lesson on, sorry, I'm going uphill now, on conflict or plot. So pre-assessment's a nice way to help kind of get your higher level kids past the lessons that would be boring, the ones that they won't be engaged in because you're telling them stuff they already know. Sorry, just taking a look. This is one of those mining shafts that's prevalent in the Pennsylvania woods. I know it doesn't look like much on my GoPro probably, but they're everywhere. There's a very rich coal mining history, particularly in this area. So if that interests you, sometime you'll want to take a look at some of my actual hiking focus videos, because I do touch on that a little bit. I'd like to touch on it more, but anyway, neither here nor there. Gifted students. Another thing that came up in this class that maybe didn't occur to me, and once it did, I actually felt awful, is social emotional learning. So a lot of times gifted learners feel very separated from their peers because they're in classes with students who can't really keep up with them, and they can't have conversations with their intellectual peers, if that makes sense. So sometimes they don't want to seem like the smart kid, nor should you call them that, because that puts pressure on them. But they kind of dumb themselves down just so they fit in. And some of them go the other way, where they put so much pressure on themselves and they're perfectionists. Now this one I understand, because I do this. Anyone that knows me will tell you that I'm harder on myself than anybody else could ever possibly be. And I'm a perfectionist through and through. And I see my higher achieving learners stressing about being perfect. And that I can identify with. And I do try to guide them because I know what it feels like to be that way. The class suggested, I can't say suggested very well today, that I am walking up a very steady incline, just so you know. But the class suggested, there we go, that we make a point of not neglecting these kids. We need to check in with them. We often don't do one-on-ones because they get their work done or they don't have questions. And they might have questions, but they don't want to ask because they're pegged as the smart kid and they shouldn't have questions. Even if you didn't intentionally do that, somewhere something made them feel this way. And it could have been long before you had them in your classroom. So if you check in with them, or you should, I shouldn't say if, when you check in with them, make sure that your check-in isn't just how are you doing? And they're like, good, I'm done. And you're like, okay, great, and move on. Be prepared as their teacher to ask them a higher level question. Be prepared to ask them something more analytical about the topic. Get into an actual conversation with them and make them feel valued. Because not only are you asking them to think beyond the curriculum that you've laid out in front of them, but you're now taking that one-on-one time and giving them your undivided attention and giving them a chance to comfortably, without fear of judgment from their peers in any direction, to actually engage in an intellectual conversation. So there was a whole section on social emotional, but those were the things that stood out to me the most. And I think it's because I can see them in my classroom. I do it. I check in. How are you guys doing? Oh, good. This was easy. Okay. And then I move on to the students who it might not be so easy for. And I shift my attention to them. And it hasn't occurred to me that those kids need pushed as well. So I feel kind of silly saying it out loud, but it's true. We focus on the kids who are struggling to master the basics, to master the curriculum. And the kids who already have it, we're like, oh good, my job here is done. Let me catch everybody else up. I get it. We're in the thick of it. We have so many learners in our rooms with so many needs. So anyway, MTSS, so small group pullout, the pre-assessment, so you can maybe motor some of those kids past what might be perceived as boring, because they already know it. The social emotional piece, make sure your gifted students are feeling heard. The other thing that was suggested, and one of the reasons I took the class, was how to enhance the curriculum. Because one of the pitfalls I find myself, falling into, for lack of a better term, is I feel like I give them more work. I don't know that I'm necessarily giving them more meaningful work, but I'm giving them more work. And that's not really fair. And I need to be a little more intentional about what I'm giving them. Now again, with the layout of my class and with it being leveled, I do things differently in my higher level class period than I do in the other 5 class periods that I'm teaching. So I am differentiating. So just to be clear, I am differentiating for these kids. I just don't feel like I'm personally pushing them as hard as I could be, and took this class to better my teaching abilities so I can give them what they need. So there were some interesting readings and videos. Oh, we're gonna go up again. Sorry, I'm gonna get all breathy on you. There were some interesting reads, some interesting videos about how to enhance. And it dove into a few different directions that I found very interesting. So first of all, they talked about, simple things like, so in my situation, let me kind of set the scene here. They gave us a textbook 2 years ago that I'm using, and we are to follow the textbook with fidelity. My high class, the textbook's a little easy for a lot of them, and I need to figure out how to enhance that so I can push them. And one of the things that was suggested for ELA in particular was skip over those basic reading comprehension questions that come at the end of every story in the textbook. And I thought, duh. They all, everyone in my high class, their reading comprehension, their lexile is well above 7th grade. And the stories in the textbook are 7th grade. Ergo, chances are they're going to get 100% on those questions every time. And it's true, they do. Every once in a blue moon, they might get one wrong because they read it wrong. But I thought about it, and there's 3 questions, and I'm handing out 3 out of 3s left and right. And I remember feeling almost silly putting them in the grade book, like it was a joke. And then they also mentioned multiple choice questions, and maybe not focusing on, I needed to breathe a minute, on multiple choice questions, because they're almost too easy. Now, never would I suggest completely eliminating multiple choice questions, because that's what's on our state test, and they need exposure to that kind of testing. But maybe fewer, and then more of the short answer, short essay would be beneficial. Focusing on questions where they need to expand on their thoughts and ideas and dive a little deeper, research-based questions, that might really push them more than simply circling the right answer, A, B, C, or D. Once again, once I heard these things, I was a little bit like, duh, Amy, why didn't you think of these? But I tried to give myself some grace, because I spend a lot of time on my lessons, and I spend a lot of time boosting those scores for my lower level learners. And I feel like I've done a really nice job with that, and it's simply time to just shift my focus to another subset of learners to try to help them be the best they can be. So coming back to this idea of questioning them in a different way, there's also, believe it or not, a section about AI. So as far as your district, I don't know where you're at with AI, but I can tell you that my district, top-notch training on anything tech. We have an amazing tech department, and they're on top of everything. Anytime we go to something at the IU, anytime I talk to teachers from other schools, I always feel like I'm light years ahead of my my colleagues from other districts, simply because my district has already put the time and effort into making sure we had the information and the training that we need, which is amazing and very much appreciated. So AI, like I've dabbled in AI a lot, so I'll give you my personal opinion, and you can do with it what you will. Everybody's entitled. I want to teach my students how to use AI responsibly and ethically. You can't ignore it because it's part of the future, just like the scientific calculator, just like laptops, just like cell phones. It's not going anywhere. So we need to embrace it, we need to figure it out, and we need to teach the students that it's okay to use it, but teach them how to use it. So I personally, as far as my teaching, creating lessons is one of my favorite things about my job, and handing that over to a computer actually makes me sad. So I'm struggling, even though I know how much time it could save me and how many hours of my personal life I could get back. I struggle with it because it does feel like cheating. So despite what I tell my students, I might not practice what I preach. That's something I need to kind of come to terms with and adapt to. And maybe when I use it more and I find that I have more days like this where I can just get out and hike, maybe I'll feel better about using it. But anyway, I digress. So I'm pretty well versed. The AI section, I don't want to say I didn't learn a lot, but I kind of didn't, because I already knew a lot about these tools. But for those of you that haven't dabbled a whole lot yet, let me tell you this. Once again, it did not occur to me that not only can I use AI to scaffold resources for struggling learners, to translate resources for learners who are ELLs, but I can use it to make my resources at a higher level for gifted learners. And once again, when I realized this, I sat there dumbfounded and wondered where the heck my brain has been, because it just simply didn't occur to me. I'm like kind of sad to admit this on a vlog, but again, we deal with and handle so many different issues and concerns and situations in our classrooms, and some things just take precedent over others, and that's what kind of got me to this place. And again, I remind myself I knew that I could do better, and I'm taking the steps to do better, and that's all I ask of my students, and that's all I can ask of myself. So coming back to AI, I have a few suggestions. So I took a story that I don't know if I'm going to use it or not, but I just grabbed something that I hadn't used before. I teach the Outsiders every year, and there's a short story called On the Sidewalk Bleeding that would be a good companion. And I don't know if I really want to use it or not, because it feels a little redundant, but I'm exploring the option, so I used it for my class. And got a whole lot of rocks and stuff over here. Looks like there's a pretty cool view through the woods there, but the rocks might be sneaky, and I'm not really feeling that. So I do see some nice views out through there. So I took my short story in PDF form and I threw it into Magic School AI. And if you haven't used Magic School, it's wonderful. It's got all kinds of things to help you and to help you help your students. Like it's awesome. Just Magic School, log in and play with it. There's tutorials on YouTube if you need some help. So I put the story in there, and I was able, like a lot of my high class kids are reading around like a 10th, if I had to average it out, a 10th grade level. So I wanted to see what it could do, because I'll be honest with you, some of these AI programs, when I ask them to take stories down to a certain grade level, they make the story sound babyish. And I do spend some time editing because I don't want to offend my students and give them something that sounds like it's a story you'd read in 5th grade. It needs to have the simplified language, but still the content that's appropriate for a 7th grader. So I put this story in. Some really cool, I don't know if you'll be able to see this very well. It's pretty cool rocks back up in there. It's a little brushy to get in there and look at that, but it's pretty cool. I haven't been up this part of the trail for some time. I'm trying to time myself. At 11:30, I'm going to turn around and start heading back down because it's hot. And I want to be heading downhill at the hottest part of the day because this continually goes up for quite some time. So anyway, 10th grade level, and boy oh boy did it enhance the vocabulary, but it didn't lose the 7th grade feel, the maturity level of the story, which was wonderful. So I was very pleased with that. And then it had options where it would come up with multiple choice questions, essay questions, short answer questions, all kinds of questions. And those questions would have been at that higher level. So definitely a good option. Another program, I'm going to pause for a minute. Okay, I'm back to finish talking about AI. Sorry, I stopped to give myself a drink, and then I stood on the path very quietly, checking the text messages coming through from my children, my actual children, not my school children. To be clear, they don't have my cell phone number. And then a deer made its way up to me. I don't think it realized I was there because I was so quiet. And then it realized I was there and has sounded the alarm. And in fact, it just ran across the path up there to evade me. So I was kind of hoping. That's the second deer that I've spooked today. It'd be really nice to see a bear. I'm always hoping. But anyway, back to AI. So the other program that I really enjoy is called School AI. So the first one I told you was Magic School. This one is called School AI. And you make little like launch spaces. Now for this one, you've got to do some, I'm going to say programming, but it's not actual like programming. It's, you're writing a prompt, a set of instructions to tell the AI exactly what you want. And that is the key. Telling the AI exactly what you want. And closing, we're going to look for some snakes while I talk. Closing the loopholes so your students can't, beat the system. So one of the downfalls is if you're pressed for time, you do have to put a lot of time up front into crafting the prompt and then previewing it and trying to use it like a student and thinking like a student and making sure it does what you want it to do. It's possible. I've made quite a few, and the kids really love this program, and every time I use it, they thoroughly enjoy it. So to give you some examples of things you can do in this program, I wanted my students to learn more about how to write a thesis statement, and I was trying to figure out how to get them to practice where I didn't have to keep constantly evaluating the quality of their theses because that's very time consuming. So I programmed a launch room where the students could put in the name of a story they've read. They could put in the name of a movie, a TV show, and the AI would come up with like a TDA prompt. And I gave it the formula for like your typical TDA prompt. And it would give a prompt. And then the students, because they had some base knowledge of the topic, could write a thesis statement. And then it would encourage them on how to make it stronger. Given the option that if they did get a question about, I don't know, let's say it asked them about the Hunger Games, and they never saw it, they never watched it, and they can't really strengthen the thesis because they don't know enough to do that, they could simply type that in, and then the AI would be like, oh, okay, cool, here's another topic. And it did take me a while to get it kind of foolproof, but in the end, it was, and it worked great. And it worked for all levels of student. But looking back, I could duplicate that launch room for my thesis statement, and I could very easily throw some curveballs in there for my higher level students to help them craft more advanced theses. So that's something that I'm going to probably go back and look at and do to help them be better. So like I said, I've used that program several times. That's just one example, but it's an awesome program and worth checking out. The final one that I'm going to bring up as far as AI is Diffit. Now, Diffit was free. It still is to an extent, but now it's, another one of those like, oh, if you want all of these other options, pay. So I don't pay for it, I only use the free. But what's kind of cool is you can put a text in there, and just like with Magic School, you can make it a lower level or make it a higher level. And it will print out vocabulary words, it will print out multiple choice questions, reading comprehension questions, all kinds of stuff. And when it actually crafts everything for you, you can tell it what kinds of questions to leave out or keep in, and then put it on a Google Doc where you can then refine it and edit it from there. And it's fast. So that's another program where if you're trying to increase things, increase the difficulty and the rigor for your gifted students, that's a free option, because I do that with the free version. So all in all, those are, I would say, the main things I picked up from this course. It was a very worthwhile grad class. Again, I do highly recommend the course from Learner's Edge. I feel like I got a lot from it. I walked away with resources that I made during the class that I will be able to utilize in my classroom come fall and help those gifted learners. And even if they're not gifted, just the higher achieving learners really push themselves so they can, excel and continue to grow. Because we don't want them to stay stagnant. We don't want them to feel like, oh, this school is easy, I've reached my full potential. We need to keep forcing these students not to get complacent and to see that even if you're achieving at a higher level, school is still rigorous and needs to be so you can continue to learn and grow. Because unfortunately, they get into the habit of school being kind of easy, and then when they get to like college, if that's their track, all of a sudden it's not, and it really throws them for a curveball. And we do not want to do that disservice to our gifted learners. So hopefully you got something out of this besides a nice walk out in nature. Some ideas to help, again, extend for those gifted learners a few resources. I will also be posting a blog on the same subject, so I'll have some links and things in there for you as well that you can take a look at. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.